Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our aim, as always, is to cut through the noise and get straight to the insights that matter for you. And let's be honest, keeping up these days, it's a lot. The sheer amount of information, new tools popping up constantly, especially if you're deep in academic research, right? Just staying current feels like a massive task, let alone the actual research work. That's exactly why today's Deep Dive is super practical. Designed with you in mind, we're looking at how generative AI can be used strategically in the humanities and social sciences. Thinking particularly about fields like thought, history, and philosophy, areas with really complex text, nuanced arguments. AI's role there is still, well, evolving. Now, we know many of you, maybe like Scholar whose questions sparked this, are already using AI for some things, practical stuff. Translating foreign texts, figuring out obscure classical allusions, maybe preliminary language edits for articles. That's a great start, definitely. But there's also this really insightful observation that's come up. For the bigger, more complex tasks like literature reviews, organizing complex sources, AI's reading can feel, well, a bit shallow.
It might not quite hit the mark for that really deep analytical work. And that observation, that's basically our springboard for today, leads us to three core questions we want to tackle. First, what untapped potential does generative AI really hold for your field beyond those first practical uses? Second, how are other scholars, particularly in thought, history, and philosophy, actually using AI? What are they doing? And third, thinking ahead, what level of AI mastery should scholars in these fields realistically aim for? So our mission today is clear. Cut through the hype, get past the headlines, and give you concrete, actionable strategies. These insights come from extensive expert consultation designed to help you move beyond just basic use, to really integrate AI as a smart, powerful assistant in your research workflow. So let's dive in. Okay, so starting with that observation about AI feeling shallow for complex lit reviews. That's a really important point. It highlights a common hurdle, right? AI can summarize quickly, sure, but grasping the subtle interpretations, the deep context needed in humanities, that's harder. You're right to feel it's maybe not quite there yet for those really deep dives.
Exactly, and that's a really common experience. But what's fascinating here is that while AI might default to a more superficial take, its capabilities, they can be seriously enhanced by how we interact with it strategically. Your current uses translation, allusion help, language editing, they're valuable starting points. High-frequency tasks where AI gives immediate payback. The challenge with something like a lit review isn't necessarily that AI can't process the information deeply. It's more about needing a deliberate, human-guided approach. We need to design how we ask it to do these complex things. It's about partnership, not just delegation.
Right, designing the interaction, being the conductor, like you said, not just listening to the performance. That brings us straight to that first big question. What is the untapped potential here? Beyond the obvious uses, what else can AI do for humanities scholars?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. Moving beyond simple questions to more sophisticated collaboration. The key insights we've gathered point towards what we're calling technology adoption recommendations. And this isn't just about using AI sporadically, it's about designing your interaction with it systematically. The big shift isn't just using prompts, it's realizing that your interaction itself can become a repeatable intellectual process. Designing these prompt engineering templates, it's not just for efficiency, it's about embedding your own methodological rigor into the process, pushing the AI to mirror that kind of precision. By formalizing how you ask, you fundamentally change the quality of what you get back.
Okay, reusable workflows. That sounds powerful.
Yeah.
But, for a scholar juggling, say, 3 different projects, isn't designing these templates just adding another task up front? How do you balance that initial effort with the payoff later?
That's a fair point, a very fair challenge. Think of it like crafting a specialized tool for your own workshop. There's an initial design phase, yes, an investment. But once it's built, it speeds up countless future tasks. The goal isn't a template for every single little query. It's for those complex, recurring tasks. Analyzing arguments, comparing texts, summarizing research in a specific niche. Once you nail a template for, let's say, critically analyzing a historical primary source, you save significant time on every source after that. The upfront effort pays dividends pretty quickly. And building on that idea, another really crucial strategy, especially for tackling that shallow reading issue, is to carefully, almost surgically, limit the AI's data sources. Imagine you're researching, I don't know, a specific aspect of medieval philosophy. Instead of letting the AI scrape the whole internet, which will give you generic stuff, right? You feed it only the specific Latin texts, the key commentaries, the peer-reviewed articles you've selected. This forces the AI to engage deeply with your curated canon. It makes it a specialist in your material, ensuring the output is relevant and cuts out the noise.
Wow, okay. That really changes things. It's not a generalist search engine anymore. It's like a research assistant trained specifically on your library. I can immediately see how that would massively boost the quality for humanities work.
Absolutely. And then crucially, once you get responses back, you need clear evaluation metrics and correction mechanisms. You need a system for assessing the quality and, just as importantly, for feeding back corrections. This isn't passive acceptance, it's critical engagement. It's your expertise steering the AI towards better, more accurate results. And to help with that, there are specific prompt design elements you can build into those templates. What we found is the AI responds directly to how you frame its role and structure its thinking. You're not just getting answers, you're actively sculpting the intelligence you're working with. Things like role setting, step-by-step thinking, and activeness adjustment are your tools for that. So first, role setting. You actually define the AI's persona. Don't just ask a question, instruct it. Act as a professional humanities and history researcher, or act as a philosophy expert specializing in, say, 19th century German idealism. This fundamentally shifts the output. It adopts a more specialized tone, filters information through that specific disciplinary lens.
That's really clever. So it's not just a generic chatbot answering. It's a specialized assistant that gets the nuances of your specific field. You're almost teaching it to think more like you need it to. That's a big shift.
Precisely. Then second, use step-by-step thinking. Guide the AI. Break down complex problems. So instead of just summarize this text for a lit review, you might say, first, identify the core arguments. Second, synthesize common themes across them. Third, point out internal contradictions or debates. Finally, evaluate its contribution. It forces a deeper, more structured analysis, takes it apart piece by piece.
Okay, I can definitely see how that structure would improve something like a lit review, but just breaking it down so rigidly risk missing those unexpected connections. The kind of intuitive leaps a human reader might make.
That's a sharp question, and that's exactly where the human-AI partnership is key. The step-by-step approach isn't meant to replace your intuition at all. It's designed to make sure the AI's foundational analysis is solid, systematic. You still bring your insight to synthesize those steps to see the bigger picture. Actually, a historian I consulted used this for primary source analysis. Force the AI to isolate arguments, counter-arguments, rhetorical strategies step by step. And they found this subtle shift in a political theorist's argument that people had kind of missed before. The structure actually highlighted the nuance, so it can be really powerful. And third, activeness adjustment. This is about consciously controlling how deeply the AI engages intellectually. For a simple query like define Plato's allegory of the cave, you probably want less activity, just the facts. But for a really nuanced critique, you'd instruct it to be more active or deepen its reasoning. Add something like, consider 3 major philosophical critiques of this argument and justify their merit. You're telling it to dig deeper, perform secondary analysis, not just recall information.
Right, asking it to reason, not just recite. That completely changes the game, changes what you expect back.
Definitely. And beyond these specific prompt techniques, think about modularizing your workflows. Break down your existing research process into smaller chunks where AI can plug in. So instead of one huge lit review task, maybe modules for identifying core arguments, cross-referencing author X and author Y, generating a provisional timeline. Integrate AI at specific points. And this is important. Log the effectiveness. Keep track of what prompts work, what outputs are good, what needs correction. It's an iterative process, continuous refinement.
Okay, with these advanced techniques, the prompts, the modular thinking, it makes you wonder, how are other scholars putting this stuff into practice, particularly in thought history philosophy?
Yeah.
What are the cutting-edge uses you're seeing?
Good question. And the insights here show how usage is evolving, moving beyond just, convenience. One key thing is understanding tool selection principles. It's crucial to realize different AI platforms are better at different things. It's not one size fits all. For instance, our consultations highlighted a really practical difference between, say, ChatGPT and Gemini for language tasks. ChatGPT, while powerful, sometimes over-adjusts sentences when editing foreign language text. It might make it grammatically perfect, but
You'll lose your voice or the specific nuance you intended.
exactly, it can kind of smooth out the style you worked hard to craft.
That's a critical detail for humanities scholars. Voice and precise wording are everything. Losing that would be a major downside.
Right. Whereas Gemini, in some cases, seems to do a better job of maintaining the original authorial style during that kind of editing. That's a practical tip worth knowing. Also, look out for advanced features some platforms offer, like a deep research function. This is built for multi-step reasoning, integrating data across sources. It could directly tackle that shallow reading concern. It allows for more complex, joined-up analysis rather than just surface summaries. Think of it as connecting the dots, generating a more synthesized view.
That sounds like it could be a real game changer for AI-assisted lit reviews, not just fetching facts, but synthesizing, drawing connections, almost like a first draft of your own analysis.
Precisely. It lets the AI do a more structured, layered analysis, potentially easing the burden of manually connecting vast amounts of material. And just pragmatically, keep an eye on cost effectiveness. AI service prices are dropping fast. What seemed too expensive maybe a year ago might be quite accessible now, worth checking periodically. And a piece of advice that always applies. Start integrating AI with high-frequency, repetitive tasks. That's the quickest way to see the benefits, build confidence, and learn before tackling the really complex stuff. Finally, be critical of those subscription-based literature tools popping up. Lots of promises, but test them rigorously against your specific needs and standards.
Oh, this leads to a really central question. With all these tools, these techniques, how much AI mastery should a humanities scholar actually aim for? We're not talking about becoming programmers, obviously, but what's the right level? What's the sweet spot?
That really is the crux of it. Mastery here isn't about coding or understanding the deep algorithms, no. It's about becoming a strategic user and a critical evaluator. What that means, practically, is getting good at designing effective prompts. Not just typing questions, but crafting those intelligent, multi-step, role-defined queries we talked about. It means understanding the strengths and weaknesses of different tools, knowing when to use ChatGPT, when to use Gemini, or maybe another platform entirely for a specific task, making informed choices. And, absolutely vital, establishing your own personal ways to evaluate and correct the AI's output. You remain the expert, the final judge of quality, nuance, and rigor. The AI assists, it doesn't dictate. So knowing how to assess its work, spot its limits, and guide it effectively, that's a core skill now. Thinking modularly about your research, breaking it down, seeing where AI fits best, that's part of this mastery too. Ultimately, it's about continuous learning and adapting. There isn't some fixed level to reach. The focus is on leveraging AI as this incredibly powerful research assistant through smart interaction, not replacing your intellect, but seriously amplifying it.
That's a much more empowering way to look at it. Not becoming an AI engineer, but an AI conductor for your own research, directing its power towards your goals. It almost makes you wonder, if we get really good at orchestrating these tools, what completely new kinds of scholarship might become possible. So just to quickly recap the key takeaways for you, we talked about the power of smart prompt engineering, role setting, step-by-step thinking, adjusting that reasoning depth, huge potential there. We stress strategically limiting AI data sources to get deeper, more relevant results, and the absolute need for your evaluation and correction. We touched on the nuanced choice between tools like ChatGPT and Gemini, depending on the task and your stylistic needs. And remember, starting with repetitive tasks and thinking in modules makes integrating AI much smoother and more effective. You know, if we zoom out for a second, maybe the future of scholarship isn't only about what we know as individuals. Maybe it's increasingly about how well we can orchestrate these smart tools to ask better, deeper questions, to uncover insights we couldn't reach alone. What fascinating new research directions could open up when you truly embrace AI not just as a helper, but as a strategic thought partner on your intellectual journey. Something to think about. We encourage you to experiment, redefine your process, and see where this collaboration takes you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.